Now, amid the longest such congressional stalemate in more than 150 years, Kevin McCarthy finally seems to be gaining support, but it is still few votes short of becoming Speaker of the House of Representatives. McCarthy has lost 13 rounds of ballots over 4 days, despite his Republicans holding a majority of seats in the lower chamber of Congress. On Friday, 15 of the 20 Republican holdouts changed their vote to back McCarthy. The U.S. House will reconvene in a short while from now. Talking to reporters as he left the House chamber, Kevin McCarthy sounded confident he could finish this once and for all on Friday night.
I think you saw we made some very good progress. We'll come back tonight, and I believe at that time we'll have the votes to finish this once and for all. It just reminds me of what my father always told me. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And now we have to finish for the American public.
In a remarkable turnaround on the 12th round of voting, McCarthy was able to persuade 14 Republican holdouts to cast their vote for him. A 15th rebel followed suit during the 13th ballot, but the California congressman was still 3 votes short of the 217 he needed to take the prized gavel.
The gentleman from Michigan
2
rise?
Republicans who missed votes early on Friday are flying back to Washington, D.C. to cast their ballots for McCarthy. He has offered various concessions to the rebels, including a seat on the influential Rules Committee, which sets the terms for debate on legislation in the chamber, and also agreed to allow any single member to call for a vote to remove him from office at any time. The Speaker of the House is second in line to the presidency after Vice President Kamala Harris. And for more on this, we are now being joined live by our correspondent Susan Tehrani from New York. Susan, good to see you. Probably you can tell us what's the mood in the House at this moment, because McCarthy sounds very confident. Should he be?
The million-dollar question, isn't it, Eric? We'll have to wait and see. Just a few hours left, but it does seem like this is a tremendous comeback for McCarthy, although he really was a front runner when you take into consideration that, one, no one else really wanted this job for good reason. And second of all, while there were some holdouts, the majority of the Republican Party really did back McCarthy. What we're seeing right now is some changes made to the rules that these far-right conservatives wanted and these concessions that McCarthy went along with. And a lot of them are a cap on spending that I think most Republicans will be happy with. There are some other things, and I think that the concern for these individuals that, were holding out, many of them from the so-called Freedom Caucus, were that, should someone like McCarthy or any other leader take the speakership and the leadership, once again, they would be sidelines. So perhaps they'll have more say in different committees. And, they're touting this as sort of a victory, so a win-win situation. If they can really see it that way, which some of them are already, then I think McCarthy may be able to make it to the finish line tonight or early in the wee hours of the morning, if you may.
Susan, let me ask you this. If the 14th vote fails on McCarthy, how will the House function without a speaker? Will it even function?
No, we need a speaker. We definitely need a speaker for the House to function. There is going to be really a gridlock until a speaker is nominated, because the representatives right now need to be sworn in one by one. And right now, everyone in the House is somewhat representative-elect, really, if you want to get very technical. So once the House is convened, a speaker is elected and nominated, and the gavel from Nancy Pelosi is handed over to McCarthy or, I don't know, someone else, then that is when the House starts to operate.
Susan, finally, what's the big deal about McCarthy? Why is it that he has managed to create some sort of opposition in the House?
it's not McCarthy himself per se. It's the opposition that the Freedom Caucus, or in a more international jargon, the populist movement of the Republican Party is very concerned with, is that they don't want to see business as usual in Washington. That's something that they really promise their constituents. And they think that for one reason or the other, and there's really may not be the case, it depends on who you ask, that McCarthy may be a classical conservative and they want to see more populist agendas really in the House moving forward and laws being passed in that sense. And one of the issues with that is when he was minority leader, perhaps, a lot of spending was taking place in the House, and they feel that perhaps McCarthy didn't push back well enough, despite the fact that he really brought the Republicans to the finish line. They didn't win the midterm elections on the one hand, but when push came to shove, perhaps he didn't fight for them the way that they wanted to. So I think, that's one of the issues. The other issue, I think, is these are individuals, while a lot of them are fighting in good faith, they believe that change needs to be brought to Washington and the way Capitol Hill operates. There are others that at the end of the day believe that if they just stay in the minority and decide on the sidelines to criticize what's happening and not do anything about it, they're just in a better position, criticize the quote unquote swamp and, not provide an alternative. And I think that's sort of what we saw play out. But ultimately, for what it's worth, McCarthy earned it. And if these rules are implemented and these changes are made, we might 2 or 3 weeks down the line see that many Republicans may be happy with them.
All right. It's a wait and see situation. Live from New York, our correspondent Susan Tehrani, thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.